chosen one. Stop for a moment. Heaven is holding its breath. The clock of eternity has just begun to tick 21 minutes that could alter your destiny forever. You feel it, don't you? That stillness around you isn't ordinary silence. It's the pause before divine rescue. This is not coincidence. Heaven has interrupted your scroll, your thoughts, your ordinary pace. You have 21 minutes to answer the voice that calls your name. You've sensed this voice before, a quiet pull you tried to ignore, a whisper that found you in sleepless nights. But tonight, that whisper becomes thunder. It calls you out of your waiting, out of your weariness, out of your worry. It says, "I'll rescue you." Something deep within you trembles, because you know this is not imagination, it's visitation. Imagine an hourglass in heaven's hand. Each grain of sand is a heartbeat, a choice, a chance. The grains slip faster now, not to frighten you, but to remind you that mercy has a rhythm. These 21 minutes are not punishment, they are grace in motion. God has paused the noise of your world so you can finally hear him clearly. There once was a chosen one who waited through endless silence. She prayed for years, wondering if heaven had overlooked her. Her nights were long, her dreams delayed, her faith thin. But one night, while the world slept, a stirring woke her spirit. She heard a voice say, "Get up. I am about to turn your sorrow into song." The next morning, her breakthrough began. What she thought was delay had been preparation. You, too, are in that hour. The unseen world leans forward, watching to see what your answer will be. Think of yourself as a ship caught between tides. The current of fear pulls one way, the current of faith pulls another. Which one you choose will determine the shore you reach. The same wind that destroys one vessel can carry another safely home. It all depends on the direction of surrender. As revealed in the book of Hosea, chapter 2, verse 15. "There I will give her back, her vineyards, and make the valley of Achor a door of hope." That's what this moment is, a door of hope. Your valley, your pain, your confusion, God is about to turn it into passageway. You are standing where sorrow ends and promise begins. Heaven has set a clock not to condemn you, but to awaken you. Listen, this is not about perfection. It's about response. The Father isn't demanding performance. He's inviting participation. You've spent enough time questioning your worth. Now it's time to step into your rescue. Picture a bridge stretching across a stormy sea. The waves crash. The wind roars. But the bridge stands strong, unshaken, waiting for your first step. That bridge is faith. You don't have to see the destination to start walking. You just have to move. These 21 minutes are sacred. Every second carries weight. You may not realize it yet, but heaven is already preparing the way, aligning people, shifting places, restoring time you thought was lost. Do you feel that stirring in your chest? That's not anxiety, that's awakening. Heaven's clock isn't ticking to scare you. It's ticking to synchronize you. Lift your eyes from the problem. Look toward the promise. God has not forgotten your address. Every delay, every detour, every heartbreak was rerouting you toward this moment. The rescue has already begun. The storm you're in isn't proof that God left you, it's proof that He's arriving. If this message is stirring something within you, pause right here. and type 21 in the comments as your prophetic act of faith, the number of response, the number of divine rescue. Let it be your signal to heaven that you're ready. Then, share this message not to gain attention, but to extend hope. Someone else is standing in their own 21 minutes, waiting for a sign that heaven still sees them. Be that sign. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to stay connected, not out of habit, but to walk together through what comes next, because this isn't just a message, it's the beginning of your deliverance. Chosen one. The countdown isn't your end, it's your awakening. You are not too late. You are right on time. Heaven is already moving. The clock still ticks, but grace still flows. You are standing in the valley of Achor, and before you, the door of hope stands open. Step through it. Heaven watches as your spirit crosses that unseen threshold. The old weight lifts. The new light breaks. You have answered the call, and eternity has recorded your yes. The divine interruption always begins quietly. It never shouts. It simply stills everything around you until only one voice remains. That's what has just happened. The pause in your routine. The sudden awareness in your heart. It wasn't random. It was heaven inserting itself into your timeline. You might not realize it yet, but divine intervention rarely looks supernatural at first. It hides itself in ordinary moments, a thought that won't fade, a memory that resurfaces, a silence that feels heavy with meaning. That's how God interrupts through the subtleties of the Spirit, through the weight that settles when something eternal wants your attention. Right now, you are standing between two frequencies, the noise of the world and the whisper of heaven. The world tells you to rush. Heaven tells you to pause. The world says, figure it out. Heaven says, trust me. Then, the interruption is mercy. God knows the speed of your days, the noise of your thoughts, the exhaustion that follows pretending to be strong. So, He stops you, not to scold, but to save. Every rescue begins with a pause. In the book of Exodus, when Moses stood before the burning bush, his life stopped mid-step. He wasn't searching for a miracle, he was tending sheep. Yet, in an instant, the desert became a holy meeting place. That's how God moves. He transforms the ordinary into the sacred, and the unnoticed moment becomes destiny's doorway. You've had such moments too, times when the familiar suddenly felt different, when the air carried weight you couldn't name. Perhaps it was while driving, or watching rain on your window, or standing in line somewhere, when your heart whispered, something is about to change. That was heaven speaking. The divine interruption exposes what routine tries to bury. It brings truth to the surface, the dreams you abandoned, the prayers you forgot, the faith you quietly buried beneath disappointment. It uncovers them, not to shame you, but to restore what was stolen by time. There's a story whispered through eternity about a man who once walked away from everything safe. He didn't know why, only that the voice inside said, go. He lost friends, comfort, even reputation. But as he obeyed, he discovered that obedience itself was the rescue. What looked like loss was really liberation. So many people ask for miracles, yet when interruption comes, they resist it because it feels uncomfortable. But the hand of God often begins by shaking what you thought was stable. The ground trembles not to break you, but to build you. Imagine standing in a forest during a sudden windstorm. The leaves swirl, branches bend, and the sound is almost chaotic. But then you notice what remains standing after the storm are the roots that went deep. That's how God tests foundations. The interruption reveals what's shallow and strengthens what's rooted. This is what's happening to you now. The stillness, the unease, the tug, it's not punishment. It's the proof that heaven has noticed you. The Creator doesn't waste his voice on the unchosen. You might think, why now? Why me? Because the timing of God is exact. There are seasons when heaven aligns itself to your path, when angels stand ready, and your spirit becomes more receptive than ever before. To miss such a moment would be to miss alignment itself. If you could see what's unfolding beyond your sight, you would understand the beauty of this interruption. Invisible hands are rearranging things, relationships, opportunities, even your desires, so that everything begins to point toward destiny instead of distraction. In the quiet moments that follow divine pause, heaven often whispers through Scripture. The voice of God thundered in the book of Job, chapter 33, verse 14. For God does speak, now one way, now another, though no one perceives it. That's the mystery of divine interruption. It's constant, but not always recognized. The whisper competes with the whirlwind, and only those who quiet the storm within can hear it. You are learning to hear again, to listen beyond noise. Take this silence as sacred space. You don't need to strive, you just need to stay. There is revelation hidden in the stillness. Every miracle begins with one pause of awareness. The interruption is not about stopping your life, it's about restarting your heart. It's the sacred reset of a soul that has run too far from its source. You are not being delayed, you are being redirected. Let the pause linger. Let the silence speak. Heaven has entered the room of your reality, and nothing will ever be ordinary again. And when the silence finally lifts, you'll realize it wasn't emptiness at all. It was God breathing alignment into your chaos, preparing you to hear the next instruction clearly. The alert has been sounded in the unseen realm. Heaven is leaning closer, watching how you move in this moment. You've heard the whisper. You've felt the interruption, but now the Spirit brings an alert. It's the divine call that wakes sleeping warriors. You've felt something building in your chest. A pulse you can't explain. That's heaven's way of saying, pay attention. Because the moment you start to awaken, darkness notices too. Every chosen one becomes a threat the moment they begin to listen. There's a reason the battle grew heavier after you started seeking peace. It's not because you're failing, it's because you're breaking through. Every storm you face is proof that you are crossing into new territory. The pressure isn't proof of abandonment, it's confirmation of proximity. When heaven alerts you, it's never to frighten, it's to prepare. Think of a watchman on the wall. He doesn't cry out because the city is doomed. He cries out because rescue is already on the way. That's what this spiritual alert is. It's heaven saying, stay awake. Stay ready. I'm moving. You've been in long seasons where you mistook delay for denial. But delay is sometimes divine protection. There were paths you wanted that would have broken you. God didn't say no. He said, not yet. Now. The atmosphere shifts again. You sense time tightening, the kind that pulls your spirit upright. The Holy Spirit begins to stir memories of moments when you were protected without knowing it, those near misses, those sudden hesitations that saved you. Every one of those was a divine alert. According to what is revealed in the book of Proverbs, chapter 4, verse 23, Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. This is the essence of heaven's alert to guard your heart, not just from others, but from the lies that try to convince you that you're too late, too broken, or too small to matter. Those are not your thoughts. They are the language of the enemy, hoping you'll mute the voice of truth. You must remember, heaven doesn't warn without purpose. The alert means something sacred is near. When God begins to disturb your comfort, He's making room for transformation. There was once a young man who constantly asked why nothing in his life ever worked. He prayed, but his timing never matched heaven's rhythm. Then one night, he dreamed of standing in an empty field as a trumpet sounded in the distance. He turned toward the sound, unsure whether to run or kneel. But as he did, a light surrounded him, and he heard a voice whisper, "This is your alert. Don't run from the call, run toward it." He woke with tears streaming down his face, realizing that all along, heaven had been preparing him to hear. That is what is happening to you now. The trumpet is sounding inside your spirit. It doesn't demand panic. It invites readiness. When heaven alerts you, response matters more than speed. This isn't about how fast you move, but how deeply you listen. Many rush to act without understanding, but the chosen pause to discern. The alert comes to refine your perception, to teach you to recognize when a distraction is disguised as an opportunity. God sharpens your discernment through moments of tension. The discomfort is His training ground. Sometimes, the alert arrives through conviction. That weight in your chest isn't guilt, it's grace pulling you closer. Conviction is heaven's way of saying, you still have time to turn. And take a breath right now and feel that stillness again. It's the same voice that spoke before creation, the same voice that parted seas, the same voice that calls you now. The alert is sounding not outside you, but within you. It is the Spirit awakening your awareness, calling you to guard what is sacred, to keep your flame burning while the world grows dark. You may not see angels, but they are closer than you think. You may not hear trumpets, but heaven's rhythm is vibrating through your heartbeat. So now, if this message has reached the deepest part of you, comment, "I'm awake." Although, say it not as empty words, but as declaration, your signal to heaven that your spirit is no longer asleep. Because when you confess awareness, heaven aligns resources to your readiness. You invite divine partnership into your process. The alert isn't ending, it's intensifying. Every moment after this will carry traces of revelation if you stay open. Keep your spiritual ears tuned, because once heaven begins to speak, it rarely stops. You are not lost, you are being located. You are not behind, you are being aligned. This is heaven's alert, and you have heard it clearly. The voice comes in the middle of storms, because storms silence everything else. When the wind rises and the waves roar, the lesser noises fade away. That is when heaven speaks most clearly. You are standing in that sacred chaos now, the moment when the noise of life collapses into revelation. The voice of God does not compete with confusion. It commands it to still. You may not hear a shout or a thunderclap, but when the divine speaks, something deep inside you suddenly knows what to do. The instructions come wrapped in peace. That is how you recognize His tone. It carries stillness even in turbulence. In Scripture, There was a moment when Elijah stood on a mountain, searching for God's voice. The wind came first, fierce and violent. Then the earthquake shook everything around him, followed by fire that consumed the stones. But God was not in any of them. Then came a whisper, so soft it could only be heard by a heart that had stopped striving. That whisper changed Elijah's direction, his destiny, and his despair. It is the same with you. The storms in your life are not evidence of abandonment. They are preparation for encounter. The thunder clears the space. The shaking removes the noise. And the fire burns away distraction until all that remains is your spirit, still enough to hear. You might not be on a mountain, but the principle is the same. The environment doesn't need to be silent for you to find clarity. Your soul does. Once the inner storm settles, divine instructions can flow like rivers through your thoughts. Sometimes the voice comes as a word, sometimes as a conviction, and other times it arrives as sudden understanding that feels like remembering something you had always known but forgotten. That's revelation. It doesn't arrive. It awakens. Think of Jonah in the belly of the fish. He couldn't hear anything from the world above. No voices. No comfort. Only darkness. Yet in that depth, he found the voice of mercy. It spoke not to condemn him, but to reroute him. The belly of the fish wasn't punishment. It was protection until obedience returned. There's a mystery in this. God often hides his voice in unlikely places. You may expect him to speak from the mountaintop, but sometimes he speaks from the depths of disappointment. He meets you in the storm, not after it, as was spoken in the sacred texts of the Gospel of John, chapter 10, verse 27. My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. And that single sentence reveals everything: recognition, relationship, and response. To hear his voice is to be known by him, and to follow that voice is to trust where you cannot see. Many have mistaken silence for absence, but silence is often his strategy. When the divine voice seems distant, it's not because he stopped speaking, it's because he's teaching you to listen differently. Words train the ears, silence trains the heart. You've walked through seasons where answers seemed delayed, where prayers felt unanswered, but in every one of those moments, heaven was fine-tuning your hearing. God wasn't ignoring you. He was calibrating your spirit to distinguish his whisper from the world's echo. If you could see the spiritual picture right now, you would notice that heaven never left your side. The voice of God has been threading through your story since the beginning, guiding, warning, comforting, realigning. You've just learned how to listen again. You are now in a posture of recognition. When the next word comes, you will know it not by sound, but by peace. Divine instructions never carry panic. They never contradict truth. They never diminish love. The voice of God does not manipulate. It liberates. It doesn't demand. It directs. It doesn't argue. It affirms. It's not the tone of condemnation, but the invitation of restoration. Right now, as you read this, that same voice is near. It doesn't need to shout because your heart is finally still enough to hear. Take this as a sacred reminder. Storms are classrooms for divine communication. The louder life gets, the clearer heaven becomes. The voice in your storm isn't trying to drown you, it's trying to guide you to shore. So, stay where peace speaks. Stay where faith anchors. Stay where love calls your name through the roar. Because when the storm ends, you'll realize it wasn't meant to destroy you, it was meant to teach you the sound of heaven. And when the clouds finally part, you'll understand the storm wasn't proof of God's distance, but the echo chamber where his whisper became undeniable, shaping your courage, refining your faith, and proving that even in chaos, heaven never lost your signal. You've heard the whisper in the storm. You've felt the stillness settle into your spirit. Now the journey begins, the walk after revelation. Because once heaven speaks, it expects movement. The word becomes life only when it's lived. You are not who you were yesterday. Something shifted inside you. The moment you listened, the atmosphere around you began to rearrange. It's subtle at first, like morning light creeping through a cracked curtain, but it's real. Heaven always leaves a trace when it touches the earth. You may feel uncertain, unsure of the next step. That's okay. The next step is rarely a leap. It's a heartbeat. Just keep moving toward the light. Even when the path feels dim, faith doesn't need full clarity to begin. It only needs honesty. Every chosen one has a journey that looks like walking through fog with a torch. You don't see miles ahead, but you see enough to take one more step. That's how heaven leads light for the moment. Direction for the day. There's a quiet beauty in that, because when you can't depend on sight, you learn to depend on voice. When vision fades, the whisper becomes map and compass. The apostle reminds us in his letter to the Corinthians, 2nd book, chapter 5, verse 7, "For we walk by faith, not by sight." Faith is not blindness, it's trust with purpose. It's the decision to keep walking even when the road disappears under your feet. You might think your part in this divine story is small, but heaven never measures worth by scale. It measures it by sincerity. One act of faith, one word spoken, one seed sown in love can echo through eternity. That's how heaven's work expands through the hearts that say, "I want to keep this light burning." When you press like, imagine it as placing another candle in a cathedral of hope. Every single flame strengthens the glow for others still walking in the dark. When you share, see it as opening a window in a night house, letting the fragrance of faith drift to someone who needs it most. Sometimes a single act of sharing becomes the rope that pulls a soul back from despair. When you subscribe, picture it as anchoring your boat to a lighthouse in the distance. You're not just following a channel, you're choosing to stay close to the beam that will guide you through future storms. And now, something deeper when you feel led to donate. Don't see it as giving away. See it as planting. Each offering is a seed sown into soil where light and truth grow. It's never demanded, only invited. Even a drop of water can help the seed rise toward the sun. There's no obligation here, only opportunity. Donation is not transaction, it's transformation. You're not paying for the message, you're participating in its mission. You're saying to heaven, "Use my portion to reach another heart." Lon, like rivers joining to form an ocean. Each contribution, big or small, creates the current that carries hope further. You can think of it this way: every like is a spark, every share, a ripple, every subscription, a beam, every donation, a root. Sparks light, ripples spread, beams guide, roots sustain. Together, they keep this message alive. And if all you can give today is attention, that too is holy. Sometimes listening is the greatest offering of all. This is how heaven builds its network, through willing hearts, not forced hands. The flame continues because each person who has been rescued chooses to keep rescuing. You are part of that circle now. The world is darker than ever, but light multiplies in the hands of the awakened. And if your heart whispers, "I want to keep the fire burning," follow that voice. Click the light. Open the window. Steady your boat. Plant your seed. All of it matters. Heaven sees your heart. And as long as this light keeps spreading, no storm, no shadow, no darkness can overcome it. And when the light you've helped carry finds another wandering soul, heaven counts it as victory. The message doesn't end with you, it flows through you. Every echo of hope you release becomes a ripple in eternity's ocean, returning one day as answered grace. Your giving, your sharing, your simple yes have already reached farther than you imagine. The same hand that rescued you now moves through your obedience, touching places your feet have never walked. What you build in faith today will shelter someone in tomorrow's storm. So keep the flame steady. Keep the window open. Keep the river flowing. Because the work you've joined isn't just digital, it's divine. You're part of a rescue in progress, written by heaven itself. There are moments when heaven pauses before revealing the next instruction, moments that test not your strength, but your surrender. You are standing in one of those sacred pauses now. The air feels different, heavy yet holy. It's the kind of silence that asks, "Will you still trust me even when you can't trace me?" Waiting seasons are not wasted seasons. They are where warriors are forged. The world might see delay, but heaven see development. You have been under divine construction. And though it felt like everything was falling apart, it was really falling into place. There's a story of a man who built a lighthouse by the edge of the sea. Every stone he placed looked the same. Every day repetitive and uncelebrated. Yet one night, when a violent storm struck, ships found their direction because of the light he had quietly prepared. He didn't realize it, but his hidden season became someone else's miracle. You, too, are building something sacred in silence. Your persistence has been your proof of faith. Every whispered prayer, every unseen act of obedience, heaven has recorded it all. You haven't been forgotten, you've been prepared. God isn't asking for perfection, He's asking for permission to move, to heal, to lead. Sometimes, surrender is louder than strength. We find in the writings of the prophet Jeremiah, chapter 29, verse 11, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." That verse is not just comfort, it's blueprint. Your story has never been random. Every closed door, every delay, every silence was a deliberate redirection toward destiny. Heaven's pace is slower because it's building something eternal. You have been in what looks like a standstill, but in the spirit, you've been moving faster than ever. God has been aligning your heart with His rhythm. You can't see the whole pattern yet, but each thread matters. The waiting room of heaven is not a place of punishment, it's a place of preparation. David had to wait years after his anointing before he wore the crown. The wait didn't weaken him, it seasoned him. The same is happening to you. There's a reason the silence feels heavier right before breakthrough. It's because heaven is close. The unseen world holds its breath before every unveiling. Heaven is not ignoring you. Heaven is incubating you. And when the time comes, it won't be gradual. It will be sudden. The doors will open in such synchronization that you'll know it couldn't have been coincidence. The steps you've taken in faith have activated alignment. Right now, the Spirit whispers, "Hold steady." The sound you've been waiting for is forming in the silence. And every tear has watered your promise. Every "not yet" has protected your now. And when heaven says, "wait," it's not withholding, it's weaving. It's aligning events, preparing people, softening hearts, shifting atmospheres so that when the door opens, everything fits perfectly. That's what's happening around you now. Alignment is in motion. And in this divine rhythm, there's a sign, a way to mark your agreement with what heaven is doing. If this word resonates deeply, if your spirit knows this pause is purposeful, then type 111 in the comments. That number represents divine beginnings and unity, the moment when your thoughts, words, and faith come into oneness with God's will. 111 is a spiritual signal, meaning heaven and earth are aligning, new doors are forming. When you write it, don't treat it like a code or ritual. Let it be a declaration. I'm ready to align with God's plan. I won't rush, I'll respond. It's not about numbers, it's about acknowledgement. You're saying yes to heaven's timing, even when you don't yet see the path. Because faith isn't built in arrival, it's built in waiting. And right now, you are standing at the threshold where waiting turns into walking. The stillness you've endured wasn't empty, it was expectancy. The silence wasn't punishment, it was protection. And soon, what has been hidden will stand revealed. When the door opens, it will open wide. When the light shines, it will shine bright. And when it happens, you'll understand why heaven made you wait, because the promise is greater than the delay. And when that moment comes, peace will settle over you, like sunrise after a long storm. You'll realize every unanswered question was heaven's way of protecting you from stepping through the wrong door too soon. The number 111 will no longer just be digits, it will be remembrance. A reminder that alignment happened here, in silence, in surrender, where heaven's rhythm met your faith, and purpose finally took its first breath of light. The weight you have carried was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to define you, to shape the edges of your purpose until they fit the mold heaven designed. Sometimes, the refining feels like breaking, but it's really the process of becoming. Pressure reveals purity. When gold meets fire, the heat doesn't create its value, it exposes it. That's why God allowed certain storms to press closer than you wished. The pressure wasn't punishment, it was purification. What you thought was the end was actually the extraction of your essence. Every chosen one must pass through the weight of glory. It's not a burden placed upon you, but one born within you. The greater the destiny, the heavier the oil, and the oil cannot flow unless the olive is crushed. You have been pressed, yes, but heaven never wastes a pressing. Think of Joseph in the pit. The robe had already marked him as chosen, but the pit marked him as ready. The betrayal of his brothers wasn't the end of his favor, it was the pathway that carried him into it. Every betrayal in your life has been transportation disguised as tragedy. There are lessons that only the pit can teach: the endurance of hope, the language of faith, the patience of mercy. Without the weight of hardship, glory would rest lightly and soon slip away. God needed your roots deep so your crown could rest steady. The weight you feel isn't random. It's measured precisely by grace. Heaven knows exactly how much you can carry without breaking. When you thought you were at your limit, you weren't at your limit, you were at your threshold. And thresholds are sacred places where old strength ends and new strength begins. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Isaiah. Chapter 60, verse 1. Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you. Glory doesn't visit without weight. The rising of light always casts shadows first. You've walked through those shadows, thinking they meant absence, but they meant approach. The thicker the darkness, the nearer the dawn. There's something divine about endurance. Heaven doesn't measure strength by what you lift, but by what you refuse to drop. You've been carrying promises others would have abandoned. You've been walking through nights that would have silenced many. Yet, here, you are still breathing, still believing, still becoming. Even your exhaustion is sacred. It means you kept moving. The weary are the ones who didn't quit. You might think you've been crawling, but heaven sees it as conquering. Because faith isn't about the pace, it's about the persistence. When a sculptor begins his work, the marble doesn't understand the chisel. Every strike feels violent, every fracture unnecessary. Yet the artist sees what's hidden within. The weight of the hammer is never random, it's intentional precision. That's what's happening to you. Every strike of loss, every carving of disappointment has been shaping something magnificent within you. The masterpiece is almost visible now. You can feel it, the subtle awareness that everything painful has somehow become purposeful. That's the mystery of grace. It doesn't erase what hurt, it redeems it. Sometimes you ask, why did it have to be this way? And heaven answers softly, because gold cannot shine until it's refined, and hearts cannot carry glory until they've been broken open. This is the secret few. Understand, your weight is evidence of your worth. Heaven doesn't invest effort in the uncalled. The fire you've walked through is proof that heaven saw something unshakable inside you, something that could endure the heat and emerge as testimony. The season you're in now is the stillness between refinement and revealing. Don't rush it. Let the weight finish its work. Let patience carve peace where fear once lived. You're being readied for visibility, and visibility without maturity is dangerous. The heaviness that once felt unbearable will soon feel holy. You'll look back and see that what crushed you also crowned you. The same fire that burned away your comfort also forged your confidence. When you carry the weight of glory correctly, it no longer feels heavy, it feels honorable. You begin to walk differently, speak differently, love differently. You stop asking, why me? And start saying, thank you for trusting me. And so breathe. The season of pressing is not forever. You're closer to release than you realize. The oil is beginning to flow, and when it does, you'll discover that the weight you carried wasn't the end of your story, it was the anointing being poured through it. The fire you feared has refined you into light. You have been forged in holy pressure, and heaven now calls you ready. Obedience is never random, it is the rhythm that synchronizes heaven and earth. When you choose to obey, even in confusion, you activate invisible movements that shift everything around you. It's not dramatic. It's deliberate. Heaven responds, not to noise, but to obedience. The smallest yes can rearrange an entire lifetime. The simplest step of faith can rewrite what generations before you could not finish. God has always used obedience as the doorway to deliverance. The enemy fears obedient hearts because obedience is proof of alignment, and alignment gives heaven permission to invade earth. You've already felt that quiet nudge before the gentle instruction to speak kindness when you wanted silence, to forgive when you wanted revenge, to pray when you wanted to give up. Every time you obeyed, the unseen realm trembled, because obedience shakes foundations. It's never about big gestures. God hides his greatest works inside ordinary actions. Moses lifted a staff. Noah built a boat. Mary said yes. The miracle was never in the method, it was in the obedience. As Jesus himself declared in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 11, verse 28, "Blessed are those who hear the word of God and obey it." Ender. That verse is simple but seismic. To hear and obey is to let the divine pattern unfold through you. You stop fighting for control and start flowing in purpose. Many wonder why God seems silent after they pray. But silence often waits for obedience. Heaven doesn't repeat what you haven't yet done. When you act on what you've already heard, new instructions appear like stepping stones across a river. Think of it like crossing a misty bridge at dawn. You can't see the whole span. You can only see the next plank under your feet. Each step of obedience reveals another. That's how the faithful walk, trusting the invisible architecture beneath their steps. Every time you choose obedience over convenience, you are planting eternal seeds. The soil may look barren, but the roots go deep. What feels like unseen faithfulness today becomes visible fruit tomorrow. You might never know how many lives are touched by one obedient act. A prayer whispered in your solitude could be the reason someone else finds peace in their storm. Obedience weaves the invisible fabric of redemption. It connects souls that have never met and stories that have never been told. There was once a woman who felt led to write letters of encouragement to strangers. She didn't have much money, didn't have a platform, just an impression that wouldn't leave her heart. Years later, one of her letters found its way to a man on the brink of suicide. He read it, wept, and lived. She never knew, but heaven did. That's obedience unseen by man, celebrated by God. Sometimes obedience means letting go of what's familiar. Abraham had to leave his land without knowing his destination. The comfort of the known must die before the promise of the new can live. That's why obedience often feels like loss before it feels like reward. You have felt this pull too, to release what no longer serves your purpose, to step away from conversations that drain your spirit, to detach from patterns that dull your discernment. Each act of release is obedience in disguise. God never asks you to surrender something without intention. Every surrender is a seed. When you let go, heaven fills the space with something stronger, purer, eternal. But obedience isn't effortless. It wrestles against logic, pride, and fear. Sometimes it feels like walking uphill in the rain. But grace meets you halfway. Divine strength appears not before obedience, but during it. The moment you decide to act, strength begins to flow. Obedience also brings clarity. You'll start noticing coincidences that aren't coincidences, doors that open without knocking, peace that follows decisions you didn't fully understand. That's how heaven confirms your direction, not through noise, but through alignment. And alignment always births acceleration. What once took years begins to unfold quickly, not because time sped up, but because resistance broke off. Obedience removes friction from destiny. Still, don't obey just to receive. Obedience without agenda carries the greatest reward: intimacy with God. When you obey out of love, not leverage. Heaven calls you friend, not servant. You may never fully see the results of your obedience on this side of eternity, but one day, heaven will replay it for you, the moments you said yes, the moments you chose faith, the moments that changed more than you knew. And when that day comes, you'll see that every small obedience was a brushstroke in a grand design, painting a picture of redemption only heaven could imagine. So keep walking, keep listening, keep aligning, because obedience isn't about perfection, it's about posture. A willing heart moves mountains more than flawless performance ever could. Your obedience is not just shaping your future, it's shaping the world around you. Heaven moves when you move. The moment you obey, heaven begins to move with you. It's not always visible, but the shift is real. You may still be walking through the same streets, seeing the same walls, meeting the same faces, but something in the atmosphere changes. You've stepped into alignment, and alignment always draws attention from both light and darkness. That's why things have felt intense lately. The opposition increased not because you're wrong, but because you're right where you need to be. Every spiritual battle you face is confirmation that you've entered a higher assignment. This isn't punishment, it's promotion. The tension you feel is the stretching of your capacity. God is enlarging your spiritual lungs so you can breathe in greater purpose. The deeper you walk in obedience, the clearer your perception becomes. Suddenly, you begin to see patterns you once ignored: how the right people entered at the right time, how certain losses made room for miracles, how even disappointment carried divine fingerprints. You realize nothing was wasted, not a single tear, not a single delay. Heaven has recycled your pain into purpose, as declared in the book of Romans, chapter 8, verse 28. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who are called by His purpose. That verse doesn't mean everything feels good. It means everything becomes good when surrendered. What once broke you is now building you. What once silenced you is now sharpening you. Every scar is a signature of survival, and survival is the proof of divine intention. There was a young man who once begged God to remove his challenges. He couldn't see why he had to struggle while others seemed free. One night, he dreamed of climbing a mountain with heavy stones tied to his back. Each stone had a name: fear, loss, rejection. When he reached the top, he realized those stones had shaped his strength. Without them, he never would have made it upward. The weight became the reason he could stand. Your story mirrors his. The same weight that tried to bury you is now anchoring your faith. The same darkness that tried to silence you is now your testimony's backdrop. You carry proof that light wins. Right now, heaven is revealing how endurance transforms into evidence. You're beginning to understand that even what you lost carries holy residue, each memory a reminder of how far grace has brought you. The chosen are never defined by the battles they fight, but by the light they carry afterward. And that light, your light, is beginning to shine differently now. It doesn't flicker like before. It burns steady, calm, and sure. There's a quiet authority that comes from surviving storms without losing softness. You're no longer trying to prove anything. You're simply being who heaven called you to be. That's spiritual maturity, peace without explanation. When others see you, they might not understand the cost of your calm, but heaven does. Every piece of peace was purchased through perseverance. The shift happening within you now isn't temporary, it's transformational. The person who once questioned if they could endure is gone. The one who stands now knows that even brokenness can become a bridge for others to cross. So take a breath. This isn't the end of your story, it's the awakening of your witness. If these words resonate in your spirit, comment, "I rise." I say it not just as text, but as testimony, because when you declare, "I rise," you're speaking from victory, not striving toward it. You're acknowledging that resurrection already happened inside you. That short phrase isn't about power, it's about peace. It means you choose to rise with grace, not just survive with scars. It's a reminder to your spirit that no darkness can hold what heaven has already lifted. Every time someone declares those words, it echoes in eternity, proof that faith still breathes on earth. So as you continue forward, carry this awareness. You are no longer the one being rescued. You are the one heaven uses to rescue others. The light that once guided you is now shining through you. And as you walk, others will follow that glow quietly, unknowingly, drawn by the same presence that lifted you when you couldn't lift yourself. That's the mark of the chosen, not perfection, but presence, not loudness, but light. Keep walking, keep shining, keep rising. And remember, rising doesn't always mean running. Sometimes it means standing still in peace while the world rushes by, knowing that stillness itself is strength when it's anchored in faith. Each sunrise from now on will remind you that you made it, that what tried to break you only revealed what could never be broken. Your rise is your revelation. When you rise, something sacred happens in the unseen. Heaven begins to echo your movement. Light recognizes light. Every step you take toward purpose sends ripples through eternity, touching places your feet will never reach. That's the beauty of obedience. It multiplies impact without demanding visibility. You may not realize it, but you're part of something larger than yourself, a river of redemption flowing quietly through time. Each act of faith, each moment of kindness, each prayer whispered in secret becomes a drop that keeps that river alive. And the river keeps moving because souls like yours choose to keep it flowing. When you respond, heaven records, not to tally performance, but to remember love, because love is the true currency of the kingdom, and it always leaves a mark. As written in the book of Philippians, chapter 2, verse 4, let each of you look not only to your own interests, but also to the interests of others. That verse isn't instruction, it's invitation. It's the divine reminder that your story was never meant to be isolated. You were designed as part of a network of light, a constellation where every star strengthens the glow of another. So, when you feel led to move, whether to share, support, or simply stay connected, it isn't a transaction, it's participation. It's joining heaven's rhythm. When you press like, imagine it as lighting a lantern on a hill. Someone far away, wandering in darkness, might look up and see that faint glow and in it, find courage to keep walking. It may seem small, but in the kingdom, no light is wasted. When you share, think of it as planting a seed in unseen soil. You might never meet the person whose heart it will heal, but the harvest will grow regardless. Hope spreads silently. Sometimes your small act becomes another soul's answered prayer. When you subscribe, picture it as weaving another golden thread into a tapestry of purpose. Every thread adds strength. Every return adds color. You're not following a feed, you're joining a fellowship of fire. A community of those who still believe light can change everything. And then, there's the quiet, sacred act of giving. If ever your heart whispers to donate, see it not as losing, but as pouring, like rain falling on thirsty soil. Your generosity nourishes unseen roots. You don't see how deep they grow, but heaven does. Every drop of giving becomes a spring for someone else's drought. It's never forced, it's freedom. Giving is love in motion. You are not paying for blessing, you are participating in beauty. There's an old story of a traveler who found a cracked clay jar beside a well. Every day, he filled it with water to carry home. The jar leaked the whole way, and he always arrived with less than he started. One day, he realized that the water spilling along the path had caused wildflowers to bloom where there had once been dust. The jar had not failed it, had fulfilled its hidden purpose. That's what your acts of giving do. You may not see the flowers bloom, but heaven does. Each drop that leaves your hands becomes color in someone else's desert. So, if one day you feel led to give, to keep the message alive, to help the words reach the unseen, know this: you are not being asked. You are being invited. Invited to become the hands that carry hope further. Your donation is not an obligation, it's an echo. It says, I've been touched, and I want the light to keep touching others. That's how revival quietly spreads through hearts that choose, not hearts that are told. In the kingdom, generosity isn't measured by the size of the gift, but by the softness of the heart. A coin given with sincerity outweighs gold given with pride. Every like, every share, every subscription, every gift, all of it breathes life into the mission. Together, we're not building a platform, we're building a lighthouse. And this lighthouse doesn't belong to one, it belongs to all who keep the flame alive. You are part of that flame. Every act of connection, every spark of generosity adds oil to the lamp that refuses to go out. And when the light you've helped nurture reaches someone lost in the dark, that victory belongs to you. Too, you may never see their face, but you'll feel their gratitude in the quiet hours. When heaven whispers, you helped me find them. So let your heart guide you. Whether you light, share, subscribe, or give, do it because it feels right, not required. Because beauty born from freedom always lasts longer than obligation. The light keeps spreading, the river keeps flowing, the fire keeps burning, and you, chosen one, are part of all of it. Fear has a way of disguising itself as wisdom. It whispers that waiting a little longer will make things safer, that shrinking back will prevent pain. But safety has never built faith, and comfort has never produced calling. There comes a point when fear must be confronted, not ignored, not outrun, but faced. The chosen ones always reach this point, the moment where they must decide whether to stay hidden or to step out into the light. And though the decision feels small, it determines everything that follows. Because fear is not just an emotion, it's a gatekeeper. The moment you walk through it, you discover that the gate was never locked. It only looked that way. You've faced many fears already. The fear of failure, the fear of being misunderstood, the fear of not being enough. But one by one, those walls have begun to crack. You're learning that courage is not the absence of fear, it's faith walking through it. It was proclaimed in the second letter to Timothy, chapter 1, verse 7, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and of a sound mind." That verse carries the medicine you need. Fear is not part of your spiritual DNA. It's an intruder, a shadow with no roots. It feeds on hesitation and disappears in decision. There's a quiet power in realizing that fear cannot touch your essence. It can delay you, but it cannot define you. Every time you act despite trembling hands, heaven calls it bravery. The trembling doesn't cancel your faith, it confirms it. Think of a bird learning to fly. The first leap is never graceful. The wings shake, the wind howls, and the ground seems too near. But flight doesn't begin with certainty, it begins with surrender. The moment the bird trusts the air proves faithful. That's what faith feels like. You don't know until you go. Many stop right before breakthrough because fear disguises itself as caution. They convince themselves they're being wise when they're actually being withheld. But the Spirit doesn't lead through paralysis, it leads through peace. If peace is present, move forward. The enemy's greatest weapon isn't destruction, it's distraction. He doesn't need to make you fall, he only needs to make you freeze. Fear freezes vision. It makes you stare so long at the waves that you forget the water was meant to carry you. Peter understood this when he walked on the sea. The moment his eyes stayed on Jesus, it defied gravity. The moment he looked at the storm, he began to sink. Fear doesn't change circumstances, it changes focus. And wherever your focus goes, your faith follows. That's why the Spirit keeps training your vision. Every trial you've faced wasn't just about endurance, it was about eyesight. Learning to see promise through pain. Learning to spot purpose through problems. Learning to focus on presence instead of pressure. You are being taught to stand where fear once made you sit. To speak where silence once owned your mouth. To try again where failure once made you retreat. The bravery that's forming in you now isn't loud, it's steady. It doesn't roar, it roots. Fear often returns in echoes. Just when you think you've silenced it, it comes back, dressed in new language. It says things like, "What if it doesn't work?" Or, "What if you're not ready?" But faith has a louder question. What if it does? You've come too far to turn back now. The very proof that you're meant to go forward is that fear still resists you. The enemy only guards what's valuable. The next step may feel risky, but it's necessary. The risk isn't in moving, it's in staying still. Because staying still means forfeiting the promise that waits beyond fear. When you finally walk through it, you'll realize that fear was never a wall, it was a veil. And on the other side of that veil stands freedom, waiting patiently for your arrival. The same power that parted seas and stilled storms lives in you. You don't have to feel brave to act brave. Heaven rewards movement, not perfection. So, let courage become your language. Let peace become your posture. You've faced the worst that fear could throw, and yet you're still here. That's proof of divine strength. One day, when you look back, you'll see that fear was the backdrop for your greatest display of faith. The trembling steps you take now will echo as victory later. The lion in the valley always roars loudest before it loses its grip. That's why the noise has been greater lately. It's fear's final attempt to stay relevant. But you, chosen one, have already stepped into freedom's territory. Keep walking. Keep breathing. Keep believing. The air is clearer on the other side. Time has been moving differently for you lately. You've noticed it, the sense that days blur, that moments feel heavy with meaning. That's not coincidence, it's convergence. Heaven has been compressing seasons, bringing what was distant into reach. When heaven moves closer, time bends. You are standing inside that bend right now. It feels strange, almost weightless, like walking between worlds, the place where prayer becomes reality. Things you used to dream about are quietly beginning to align. You can sense it in small ways, the peace that returns for no reason, the doors that open without effort, the conversations that feel divinely timed. Heaven is no longer a distant realm, it's brushing against your timeline. You have entered a prophetic countdown, not to fear, but to fulfillment. Every second is sacred now, every heartbeat heavy with purpose. The clock that once terrified you has become your confirmation that the wait is nearly over. According to what is written in the book of Habakkuk, chapter 2, verse 3, "For the vision is yet for an appointed time, though it tarry. Wait for it, because it will surely come. It will not delay." That's not just a promise, it's a pattern. Everything God begins, He completes. Delay does not mean denial, it means design. What's forming around you right now is alignment between promise and purpose. You can feel it like the hum of a coming storm, not of destruction, but of release. Heaven doesn't measure time like earth does. You count minutes, but God counts readiness. When the two finally match, manifestation happens. That's what's unfolding here. Divine timing, intersecting human trust. Maybe you've wondered why things took so long, why the answer didn't come sooner. But heaven never rushes healing, never shortcuts growth. If the promise had arrived too early, you wouldn't have recognized it. Timing protects miracles from being mishandled. Look back, every delay has carried a lesson. The unanswered prayers built endurance. The waiting seasons trained your discernment. The stillness taught you to listen to subtle signals from the Spirit. None of it was wasted. Now, as heaven prepares to unveil what's next, you are called to stay aware. Spiritual awareness is your watchtower. Watch for confirmations in conversations, patterns in scripture, peace that suddenly fills a room. That's heaven's language. The countdown has begun, not in fear, but in fulfillment. It's the sound of heaven saying, "What I spoke will now begin to move." Oh, there was a woman who once felt forgotten by time. Her promises seemed buried, her hope dimmed. But one morning, she awoke with the same routine coffee, prayer, silence, and yet something was different. The air felt charged. That very day, a door opened she'd stopped knocking on years before. What changed wasn't the world around her, it was the time within her. Heaven had declared, "Now, enter." That's the shift you are sensing. Your now is approaching. But heaven always gives a sign to mark the transition, a number, a word, a whisper, something that says, Remember this moment. It's the hinge. Ender. If your spirit knows that this is your season of divine timing, if you can feel that the countdown has begun, then type 888 in the comments. That number carries the meaning of new beginnings, resurrection, and restoration. The triple repetition symbolizes heaven's completion of one cycle and the birth of another. 888 represents the overflow of grace, not just surviving the past, but stepping into abundance after endurance. When you write it, don't treat it as a symbol of luck. It's a statement of alignment. You're saying, I'm stepping into new beginnings. What ended was not loss, it was transition. You'll start to notice it appear in times, totals, patterns, each citing a divine wink from heaven, reminding you that the new chapter is already turning. Every chosen one reaches this sacred crossroad, when waiting gives way to walking. The key is to move at the speed of peace. Don't rush, don't retreat. Just respond. If you move when heaven moves, you'll never miss your moment. Doors that once refused to open will swing effortlessly because they were always waiting for this version of you, the one who trusts timing more than tension. Soon you'll look back and realize how perfect it all was. Every closed door, every silent night, every delay, they weren't detours, they were directions. Heaven has never been behind schedule. So mark this moment in your spirit. The countdown isn't something to fear, it's something to celebrate. Because what's coming next is not chaos, it's completion. You are standing on the border between prophecy and manifestation. Heaven is no longer promising, it's performing. When the clock strikes in your soul, you'll recognize it immediately. And with a quiet smile, you'll whisper, "This is the appointed time." There are crossroads in every divine journey, moments where two paths stretch before you, both promising something, yet only one carrying purpose. This is where you find yourself now, not lost, but positioned. Heaven doesn't place you at crossroads to confuse you. It does so to confirm your maturity. The choice before you is sacred because it proves that you've grown strong enough to choose. This moment is not about right or wrong, it's about alignment or avoidance. One path will look easier, safer, predictable. The other will look uncertain, even intimidating. But your spirit will recognize its pull. That pull is destiny calling. The crossroads test is never about direction, it's about devotion. It asks, will you follow comfort or calling? Every chosen one must face this question before stepping fully into purpose. When the Israelites reached the edge of the promised land, they stood at a crossroads too. They had come so far, seen miracles, survived deserts. Yet at the border, fear whispered louder than faith. The land was ready, but they weren't. Many turned back, not because God's promise failed, but because their faith did. The same temptation still lingers, to retreat when the unknown looks bigger than the promise. But you, chosen one, have learned too much to turn back now. Every storm you've survived has been training for this decision. Every valley you've walked through has sharpened your discernment for this very choice. The ancient words recorded in Deuteronomy, chapter 30, verse 19, remind us, I have set before you life and death, blessings and curses. Now choose life, so that you and your descendants may live. That verse is heaven's heartbeat. It doesn't demand. It invites. It places power back in your hands. You are not a victim of chance. You are a participant in creation. Every choice you make either aligns with light or drifts toward shadow. This decision before you might not even be visible yet. It might not come as a big announcement, but as a whisper, an inner knowing. A gentle push. A sudden peace about what used to frighten you. Heaven rarely shouts instructions. It shapes inclinations. The spirit doesn't drag, it draws. You may feel the tension of dual desires, the pull of safety versus the magnet of purpose, the comfort of familiarity versus the thrill of the unknown. That's the sacred struggle of transition. But remember, safety never birthed greatness. The miracle always waits on the other side of movement. Think of Ruth standing at her crossroads. She could have gone back to comfort, to everything familiar. Instead, she chose to follow Naomi into uncertainty, and that decision rewrote her destiny. Her yes became the lineage through which kings would one day rise. One decision shifted eternity. Your choice will ripple too. Heaven records decisions like seeds. What you plant in obedience today will bloom into destiny tomorrow. Every yes carries generational impact, even when it feels small. There's a holy weight to this kind of moment. You might feel it as a heaviness in your chest, a trembling in your hands, or a deep stillness that asks you to listen more closely. That's not anxiety, that's awareness. Heaven's presence often feels like pressure right before purpose unfolds. Take courage in knowing this. God does not leave you to choose alone. The Spirit is your compass, your counselor, your quiet voice saying, "This is the way. Walk in it." And even if your steps wobble, grace has a way of redirecting them toward destiny. Crossroads are not meant to paralyze you, they're meant to clarify you. They strip away the noise until only one truth remains. You were created for movement, not maintenance. The enemy's goal is to keep you looping in indecision, because indecision is disguised delay. But you are learning the difference between waiting on God and wandering in circles. Waiting builds faith, wandering drains it. Heaven is calling you to the kind of movement that feels like peace. Not punits. This isn't about rushing forward, it's about stepping forward with confidence that you're not walking alone. Angels attend those who move in alignment. The moment your heart decides, heaven dispatches help. At this crossroads, the road of calling may not promise comfort, but it guarantees communion. You'll find God not just at the destination, but in every step you take toward it. So breathe deeply. Let peace lead the way. The path may narrow, but it's paved with purpose. And when you take that step, the one that feels both fragile and final, something in heaven will shift. And you'll sense it, the confirmation that you chose rightly. Because in the kingdom, the right road is not the one with the least resistance, but the one where your soul feels most alive. And when you walk it, every fear that once shouted will fade into silence, replaced by one sound, the quiet applause of heaven, saying, "They chose life." When you choose life, something unseen begins to shift. The atmosphere recognizes your decision long before the results appear. Heaven celebrates quietly, not with thunder, but with alignment. Doors begin to unlock. Peace starts to settle, and the path ahead grows clearer with every step. The mark of obedience is not noise, but order. Everything that was scattered starts coming together. What felt disconnected begins to harmonize. You notice it first in your spirit. The weight you carried for so long begins to lift. replaced by a calm certainty that doesn't need explanation. That calm is heaven's signature. Obedience releases order. Fear breeds confusion. But faith brings structure. The moment you stop running from the call, chaos loses its grip. You don't have to chase purpose anymore. You simply walk in it. There's a kind of rhythm in this stage of the journey, a steady beat that guides your steps. You start noticing divine patterns where before you only saw pain. The friendships that faded now make sense. The closed doors now look like protection. The unanswered prayers now sound like wisdom. Everything that once seemed random starts to reveal its design. As recorded in the book of Psalms, chapter 37, verse 23, "The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and he delights in his way." That word ordered means planned, prepared, synchronized. God has already walked the road. You are just beginning to travel. Your task is no longer to control it, but to cooperate with it. When your steps are ordered, even détours become directions. The roadblocks you face are not punishments. They are pauses that prevent collision. Heaven's traffic system is perfect. No movement is wasted. No waiting is meaningless. There's beauty in realizing that you no longer need to rush. Peace becomes your compass, and patience becomes your strength. You begin to value quiet days as much as dramatic breakthroughs. You stop measuring progress by speed and start measuring it by stability. In this new rhythm, you'll begin to sense the gentle presence of God, not only in prayer, but in everything, in laughter, in ordinary mornings, in the sound of rain. You'll realize He never left. He was just waiting for you to slow down enough to notice. The chosen learn this truth over time. Miracles aren't always explosions of power. Sometimes they're subtle shifts of perspective, a healed heart, a new thought, a calm mind where anxiety once lived. Heaven's miracles often arrive disguised as peace. You may not see angels, but you'll start to notice alignment, perfect timing, divine coincidences, peace that enters without warning. Those are signs that you are walking in sync with heaven's rhythm. There's a story told among the elders of faith about a potter and his clay. The clay once feared the pressure of the wheel, the turning, the stretching, but the potter whispered, "I must shape you while the water is still fresh. If I delay, you'll harden before purpose." And so the clay learned that the pressure was kindness. It kept it soft enough to become beautiful. That's what God has been doing with you. The seasons that felt like spinning were shaping. The tension wasn't to break you, it was to form you into something that could hold glory without cracking. Now, the shaping is almost complete. You can feel it, the stability of spirit that comes from knowing who you are and whose you are. Fear no longer dictates your pace, peace does. You are learning to walk without panic, to trust without proof. The chosen ones always reach this stage when striving stops and surrender begins, when you no longer try to earn grace, but simply live from it. When you stop fighting for favor and realize you've been walking in it all along. This is maturity, to rest while still moving, to trust while still building, to smile even when the path curves out of sight. It's knowing that purpose doesn't always shout. Sometimes it hums softly through your everyday life. Soon, the fruit of this ordered walk will begin to appear. People will notice your calm, your clarity, your peace, and they'll ask, "What changed?" And you'll know the answer. It wasn't a miracle outside you, it was transformation within you. Because when a soul comes into divine alignment, everything around it eventually follows. Light organizes what darkness once scattered, peace restores what panic dismantled, and destiny begins to bloom naturally, like a field that has waited patiently for the right season. You are in that season now, the season of order, of rhythm, of quiet miracles. The road ahead will not always be smooth, but it will be sure, for every step you take is guided by the same hand that wrote your story before you ever walked it. When order settles into your spirit, peace becomes the proof that heaven is near. You start to notice life moving with a quiet harmony, like a song you somehow already know the melody to. The chaos that once ruled your thoughts no longer has permission to speak. There's a stillness now, sacred, steady, and sure. You are walking through the stage of restoration, where everything that was once scattered begins to return, but not as it was. It returns refined, renewed, and ready. Heaven is rebuilding what you lost, not as a replica, but as revelation. Every chosen one reaches this point, the moment when the storm fades and the rebuilding begins. The pieces that once fell apart start forming something more beautiful than before. You realize that the breaking wasn't destruction, it was design. As written in the book of Joel, chapter 2, verse 25, I will restore to you the years that the locust has eaten. That promise is not poetic, it's prophetic. It means nothing truly dies in the hands of God. Even time can be redeemed when grace governs it. The years you thought were wasted are becoming the soil for new growth. Restoration often comes quietly, like dawn creeping over ruins. It begins with gratitude. Gratitude shifts the air. It transforms scarcity into sufficiency. When you start thanking God for what remains, heaven multiplies it. And as restoration unfolds, a new awareness rises. You are no longer just a receiver of grace, you are a carrier of it. The light that healed you is now asking to heal through you. When you press like, think of it as lighting another candle in this cathedral of renewal. One flame alone can be fragile, but together they chase away shadows. Each click is a tiny declaration. Hope still lives here. When you share, picture yourself as a messenger walking down quiet streets at dusk, handing out small envelopes of light. You never know who might open one and find the strength to stay another day. That's not content, it's compassion in motion. When you subscribe, imagine joining a circle of torches gathered on a hill. Each new light strengthens the collective glow, so that no soul wandering below will lose their way. It's not about following, it's about belonging to something luminous. And when you comment, think of it as leaving a stone of remembrance on a sacred path. Your words become markers for those who come after you, proof that light passed through here and kept shining. Even a few words can turn into a guiding lantern for someone else's night. And if your heart ever whispers to give, don't see it as losing, but as letting your light travel further. Giving is not an obligation, it's a love story between heaven and humanity. Every offering, however small, becomes a spark that turns into warmth for someone who has been cold too long. Your generosity is the river that keeps this fire alive. It's not about currency, it's about current. It's the flow of compassion that keeps hope circulating through lives and nations. You're not donating to a message, you're becoming the message. There's a story of an old man who tended a lighthouse on a rocky coast. Each night, he filled the lamp with oil, even when storms raged and ships were rare. One evening, a traveler asked why he still bothered when no one thanked him. The man smiled and said, "Because if even one sailor sees the light, it's worth every drop of oil." That's what your support does. It fills the lamp. It keeps the flame visible for hearts still adrift. You may never meet them, but their gratitude will echo in eternity. You're part of something sacred now, a movement, not of noise, but of nurturing. The world may scroll past quickly, but light always lingers. Every act of connection, every click, every word, every gesture sends light into places algorithms can't reach. And remember, this has never been about performance or persuasion. It's about participation. You are invited, not instructed. You are welcomed, not required. The beauty of divine partnership is that it's born from freedom. When you choose to engage, to connect, to give, it's not duty, it's devotion. A quiet agreement between your heart and heaven's. So, if this message found you in a dim place, let it remind you, you are both the rescued and the rescuer now. The light that guided you here is now entrusted to your hands. Keep it burning. Keep it beautiful. And when you choose to pass it on, whether through kindness, through words, or through support, do it with joy. Because giving light never leaves you in darkness. You are part of something far greater than you realize, a quiet revival built not by demand, but by devotion. A growing flame that no storm can silence. When light begins to multiply, the atmosphere itself changes. The places that once felt heavy start to breathe again. The air feels cleaner, the silence softer. It's as though heaven has stretched its fingers through the fabric of your life and begun to smooth the wrinkles one by one. You have reached the stage of divine balance, the moment when everything inside you aligns with what's around you. It's not perfection, it's peace. It's not that the storms stopped existing, it's that they no longer define your horizon. You've learned to stand still even when the wind still moves. That's what mastery in the spirit looks like, not control, but calm. The peace you feel now didn't arrive by accident. It was carved by fire, watered by tears, and anchored by faith. Every time you chose forgiveness over resentment, patience over panic, faith over fear, you built this calm. It is your harvest. The Book of James, chapter 1, verse 4, reminds us, let perseverance finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. That's what the last seasons have been doing, finishing their work. Every hardship was a lesson in disguise. Every delay, a teacher. Every disappointment, a chiseling hand. You are not who you were. You are refined. You no longer react from fear, but respond from wisdom. It's strange how transformation rarely looks like triumph from the inside. When God matures a person, it feels less like soaring and more like settling. It feels like roots going deeper, not branches growing taller. But roots are what make growth sustainable. The deeper your roots, the steadier your fruit. You have learned this rhythm now, the sacred exchange of loss for longevity, of struggle for strength. Heaven values endurance because eternity is built on it. There's a profound simplicity to spiritual maturity. You stop rushing toward outcomes and start recognizing the presence in every process. You begin to understand that revelation isn't found in grand moments alone. It hides in the quiet consistency of faithfulness. You no longer need to chase signs. The signs begin to follow you. That's what happens when alignment becomes lifestyle. The miraculous no longer feels distant. It breathes through ordinary moments. Laughter shared. Our burden lifted. A new sunrise after a sleepless night. This is what peace after purpose feels like. It's when the weight no longer crushes but crowns. It's when the same fire that once frightened you now warms you. There's an image that captures this stage perfectly, a tree standing after the storm. The ground around it may still be soaked. Leaves might still tremble. But the trunk remains unmoved. Its roots have found something solid beneath the surface. That's you now. You've been shaken, but not broken. Bent, but not uprooted. And from that stillness, you begin to notice others still lost in the storm. Their eyes carry the same fear you once knew, and something inside you whispers, "This is why you endured, to show them that peace is possible." And that realization changes everything. Your survival transforms into service. Your healing becomes hospitality. You stop asking, "Why me?" and begin saying, "Use me." W. Maturity looks like that, a heart willing to pour even when it's still mending. It's realizing that the oil of your experience was never meant to stay sealed. The anointing multiplies only when poured. In this quiet strength, gratitude deepens. You begin to thank God for things you never thought you'd appreciate, the losses that revealed loyalty, the delays that refined discernment, the silence that taught you how to hear. You begin to see how everything, every wound, every wonder was part of a symphony far too intricate for you to conduct. And now, you're content to let heaven hold the baton. Peace becomes your companion, wisdom your weapon, and love your legacy. The world around you may still spin in confusion, but inside you, a kingdom stands unshaken. You walk differently now, not faster, but firmer. You speak softer, but your words carry more weight. You act slower, but your steps echo farther. This is the maturity of the chosen, the calm after the calling, the moment when your soul and heaven finally agree. So rest, not because the journey is over, but because your heart has caught up to your destiny. What's ahead is no longer a mystery to fear. It's a promise to walk out, one peaceful step at a time. And as you rest, the heavens rest with you, no longer striving, no longer proving, only being. This harmony between your breath and God's will is the true definition of arrival. Heaven's clock has reached its final chime, the 21st minute. The moment that began as a whisper has become a revelation. You are standing now where time and eternity meet, where what was promised becomes present. Nothing around you looks the same, not because the world changed, but because your eyes did. The scales of fear have fallen, and clarity has taken their place. The 21st minute is not just a number, it is a symbol. It marks the crossing from hearing to heeding, from hoping to holding, from surviving to shining. You have responded to the call that few recognize, and heaven has recorded your yes. This is the moment where obedience becomes outcome. The rescue you were waiting for didn't arrive as a thunderbolt. It unfolded through transformation. The saving happened within you first, long before it could happen around you. The stillness you carry now is sacred evidence. It says, "I have been through fire and found my shape. I have been through darkness and found my light." What once terrified you has now become testimony. The 21st minute always brings unveiling. The divine rescue you longed for was never about escaping your circumstances. It was about awakening your capacity. You were never drowning. You were being taught to breathe underwater. The word rescue means to draw back from danger. But heaven's version adds something deeper. It means to restore to original design. That's what this season has been, God returning you to who you were before the world taught you fear. Everything that has happened has been a lesson in remembrance. You've learned that strength isn't the absence of weakness, but the endurance through it. You've learned that hope isn't naive, it's holy defiance in the face of despair. You've walked through fire and discovered that flames can illuminate as much as they can burn. You've learned that surrender isn't loss, it's liberation. The parts of you that once broke have become openings where light can now pass through. As written in the book of Isaiah, chapter 43, verse 2, "When you pass through the waters, I will be with you, and when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned." Now, those words are the anthem of the 21st minute. You have walked through water and fire and discovered that survival was never the goal. Refinement was. Heaven didn't keep you from the storm, it kept you through it. There's an image of a silversmith watching his metal in the fire. He never removes it too soon, because he knows it's not ready until he can see his reflection in it. That's what God has done in you. The fire lasted until his likeness appeared gentle, radiant, unwavering. Now, the reflection is clear. You have become what you were always meant to be, a mirror of mercy, a carrier of calm, a vessel of victory. You are not the storm-tossed one anymore. You are the steady flame, the guiding voice, the living proof that heaven still rescues. The 21st minute was never about counting time, it was about counting transformation. It was heaven's way of saying, "You've waited long enough. Now watch what I do with your waiting." Emden. And so, the rescue completes itself, not with thunder, but with tenderness. It ends in restoration, not rebellion. The light inside you will now begin to overflow, touching places that your words alone cannot reach. You will become a sanctuary in motion wherever you go. Peace will follow, not because you force it, but because you embody it. People will feel the steadiness in your presence and not know why. But heaven will. You'll carry the fragrance of someone who's been with God and lived to tell the story. This is the fruit of response, the miracle that only obedience can birth. The first minute was awakening. The 21st is ascension. You have crossed over. The rescue has become renewal. The one who once waited for deliverance now delivers hope. And as heaven closes the clock on this encounter, the echo that remains is simple yet eternal. You answered. You stood when others trembled. You listened when others scrolled past. You responded when others delayed. And now, you live in the evidence of that, yes. The 21 minutes were never a countdown to the end. They were a countdown to becoming. And now, time itself bows to purpose. The heavens stand still for a heartbeat, watching you walk fully into the identity you once only imagined. The rescue has finished its song, but its echo will remain within you. Carry it forward. Carry it gently, because the world you're stepping into needs the peace you now embody. And now, chosen one, the circle closes, the story returns to stillness. You've walked through storms, silence, surrender, and light. What began as a call has become communion. You are not the same soul who first heard the whisper. You are steadier, softer, stronger. You are proof that heaven finishes what it starts. If this journey has stirred something inside you, let your light leave a trace. When you press like, it's not approval, it's acknowledgement. It says, I heard the message, and I'm keeping the flame alive. When you share, imagine sending a small lantern floating down a dark river. Someone, somewhere, will see its glow and realize they are not alone. That's how hope travels quietly, beautifully, endlessly. When you comment, see it as writing your name on the walls of faith. Your words may be brief, but they will echo as reminders to others that light passed through here and stayed. When you subscribe, picture it as planting your roots deeper into this garden of grace. You're not joining a list, you're choosing to grow where peace is planted. And if your heart feels moved to donate, do it as an act of worship, not obligation. Every seed you plant becomes light in another soul's darkness. You are helping the message travel beyond borders, beyond screens, beyond time. This isn't about demand, it's about devotion. You choose what to give, how to give, and why to give. The beauty of this moment is that your choice remains sacred, free, and powerful. So, let the flame stay in motion. Let your presence be the proof that the world still holds light. The rescue has begun, and it continues through you.